July 20th, 1946, 9:25 p.m. Dean Martin stood alone on the stage of Havana Club, thinking his career was over. Standing alone on an empty stage, nobody would want that. But the 20-year-old kid who emerged from backstage was about to change everything. His name was Jerry Lewis, and what happened 5 minutes later was the birth of a $50 million empire. Nobody knows this story completely, because what happened that night was so incredible that it became a Hollywood legend. But the truth is, if that booking mistake hadn't happened, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis would never have met. And entertainment history's greatest comedy duo would never have existed. This is the birth story of Hollywood's greatest comedy team, and the tale of how Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis met through a wrong booking, caught magical chemistry in 5 minutes, and how that chemistry transformed into a $50 million partnership. But first, let me tell you about Dean Martin's situation that night, because this man had no idea he'd be a millionaire in 5 minutes. 29-year-old Dean was living through the worst period of his life, and nobody knew it. His real name was Dino Paul Cruxetti, a former boxer from Steubenville, Ohio. When his nose was broken, he left the ring and turned to music. But New York was merciless. Dean's childhood was tough. He grew up as the child of Italian immigrant parents, working in his father's barber shop. In his youth, he boxed and even reached semi-professional level. But when his nose was broken, he had to say goodbye to boxing. After discovering his musical talent, he began singing in local clubs. Despite the beauty of his voice, he couldn't achieve success in the big cities. In the summer of 1946, Dean's life was a complete disaster movie. He had divorced his first wife, Betty McDonald, couldn't pay child support, and was trying to make ends meet, performing in small clubs. Here's the shocking truth. Dean Martin was making $75 a day. That money was nothing for living in Manhattan. The divorce process had emotionally worn Dean down. He could rarely see his children, and the alimony he sent each month strained his budget. Sometimes he could only afford to eat 1 meal a day. That week Dean was in desperation. Several big club bookings had been canceled, and his manager was no longer answering the phone. Dean Martin was thinking of giving up. He was planning to return to Steubenville and work in his father's barber shop. But that night, everything would change. Now let me introduce you to the other hero of that night. And believe me, his story is even more surprising. Jerry Lewis was only 20 years old. He had no experience, and he had no idea he was about to catch the biggest break of his life that night. His real name was Joseph Levitt. This kid from Newark dreamed of Broadway, but nobody believed in him. Jerry's family was also living in difficult circumstances. His father, Daniel Levitch, was a vaudeville performer, but constantly struggled to find work. His mother, Ray, played piano when she discovered Jerry's talent for comedy. Jerry was a different child. He was ostracized at school, called weird, but this difference was his superpower. He'd been performing on stage since he was 15. Lip sync, voice impressions, physical comedy. He tried everything, but nobody in the professional world took him seriously. Jerry's Havana Club booking wasn't a coincidence. This was his first big chance. He was making $20 a day at Catskill summer hotels. When he shared it with his family, almost no money was left. But that night, Jerry Lewis's life would change, and he had no idea. July 20, 2 men, 2 destinies, 1 stage. Now let's get to that night. And let me tell you, this mix-up changed Hollywood history. Dean Martin got a phone call at 6 p.m. Lou Walters was calling and was desperate. "Dean, I have an emergency. There are no performers left at Havana Club. I can send you, but come immediately. The pay is $50. $150. 2 weeks' worth of Dean's earnings at that time. He couldn't say no, but Dean didn't know what was behind this money. Havana Club was one of Manhattan's most elite places. Red velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers, millionaire customers. It was way above Dean's league. When he arrived at the club, manager Eddie Torres was surprised to see him. "Dean, what are you doing here? Your booking is tomorrow." Dean's stomach turned. "What do you mean tomorrow?" Lou said, "Today. Today we have our comedian, Jerry Lewis. You were supposed to come tomorrow." That was the moment the fateful meeting between Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis began. Eddie Torres was in panic. 2 artists, 1 stage, 200 wealthy customers were coming. Canceling was impossible. At that moment, Jerry Lewis came out from backstage. When he saw Dean, his eyes lit up. "You're Dean Martin. I watched you at Glass Hat. You're magnificent." Dean was touched by Jerry's sincerity. "Thanks, kid, but I think we both have a big problem." A crazy idea came to Eddie Torres's mind, and this idea changed entertainment history. "Boys, why don't you perform together?" Dean and Jerry looked at each other. They didn't know each other. They had never rehearsed. "We've never worked together," Dean said. "We'll improvise," Jerry suggested, and finally desperation pushed them to try. They both needed the money. "Okay," Dean said. "Let's go on together for 10 minutes. Whatever happens, happens." But what they didn't know was, those 10 minutes would be the beginning of a $50 million career. And then, that moment came. Entertainment history's most important 5 minutes were beginning. 9:30 p.m. The 200-person salon was full. New York's wealthiest businessmen, society ladies. Nobody knew these two names. Eddie Torres announced with the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special surprise. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis." The audience was silent. Who were these people? Dean went on stage and started singing "That's Amore." There was magic in his voice, but the audience was cold. And then Jerry burst onto the stage. That was the moment magic began. Jerry started imitating Dean. But this wasn't normal imitation. This was pure comedy gold. He was exaggerating Dean's every gesture, comically mimicking his voice. The audience started laughing. Dean didn't understand what was happening. Then he realized Jerry was being genius, and he joined the stage. "Hey kid, what are you doing?" Dean asked. Jerry replied, "I'm copying you, Mr. Martin, but trying to do it better." The room laughed. Dean challenged, "Then try to sing better." Jerry started singing "That's Amore" with a very funny accent. Dean stood next to him, making correction. This improvisation lasted 10 minutes, and the audience loved it. Standing ovation. 5 minutes of applause. That was the moment Martin and Lewis was born. Backstage, both were in shock. "This was incredible," Jerry said. "We caught this chemistry without any rehearsal." "You're very funny, kid," Dean replied, "and I perfectly compliment your music part." Eddie Torres came. "Boys, the audience went crazy. You should be a team." And that night, in 5 minutes, a $50 million partnership was born. After that night, everything changed rapidly, and nobody could predict how big this duo would become. Dean and Jerry talked until morning. Both felt they were at the turning point of their lives. "Dean, you compliment me perfectly. You're the straight man, I'm the comic. This is an unstoppable combination. Jerry, you also bring incredible energy to my music. We can be a team." The next morning, they talked to Eddie Torres. They wanted weekly booking. "Okay," Eddie said, "but more rehearsal is needed." Last night was luck. For the next 3 weeks, they rehearsed every day. They developed routines, perfected timing. August 1946, Martin and Lewis' official partnership began. They immediately caught a big break. 500 Club, Atlantic City. Skinny D'Amato booked them. The first night the audience was skeptical. The second night, explosion. Standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Word of mouth spread. Entertainment industry moguls started coming to Atlantic City. Ed Sullivan came, watched, immediately invited them to Toast of the Town. Television debut. National audience saw them for the first time. Ratings incredible. Paramount Pictures offered a film contract. My Friend Irma was their debut. Box office smash. $4.2 million. Critics raved about their chemistry. My Friend Irma Goes West followed. Bigger hit. The next 10 years, 16 films, countless TV shows, legendary Las Vegas residencies, films, At War with the Army, Sailor Beware, Jumping Jacks, The Stooge, Scared Stiff, The Caddy, Money from Home, Living It Up, Three Ring Circus, You're Never Too Young, Artists and Models, Partners, Hollywood or Bust. Every film earned millions. They were regular guests on television's Colgate Comedy Hour. Their Sands Hotel residencies in Las Vegas became legendary. Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, Rock Hudson would come to watch them. But remember, everything started with that 5-minute coincidence. Years later, Jerry Lewis explained, "If that reservation mistake hadn't happened, Dean and I would never have met. My career would have gone nowhere. That night changed everything." Dean Martin admitted, "Jerry saved my life that night. I was giving up. That kid gave me perspective. Without him, I would have been nothing." Eddie Torres, who witnessed everything. "I've been in showbiz for 30 years. I never saw instant magic like that night. It was pure destiny." The truth, Havana Club became entertainment history's birthplace that night. Dean's wrong date. Jerry's first big chance. Eddie's creative solution. Perfect storm. This accident that happened in 5 minutes reshaped the next decade's entertainment landscape. Martin and Lewis made millions laugh. Movies earned millions. TV comedy was redefined. And it all started with a booking mistake. This story proves that biggest opportunities often come disguised as problems. Dean thought he was experiencing his biggest disappointment that night. Actually, it was his biggest opportunity. Jerry entered a scary challenge. This challenge made him a superstar. Eddie solved a simple problem with a creative solution. This solution changed the industry. July 20, 1946. Havana Club. 5 minutes. Comedy duo. History's most important 5 minutes. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis proved that magic can't be planned. It happened spontaneously. Two strangers became brothers. Two separate careers became a phenomenon. One booking mistake converted into a legend. That night at Havana Club was the perfect example of destiny, friendship, and the power of spontaneity. And still nobody knows exactly what happened in those 5 minutes, because that magic was too incredible to believe. Dean Martin's wrong date. Jerry Lewis's first big chance. Eddie Torres's creative solution. Everything created a perfect storm. This coincidence that happened in 5 minutes shaped the next decade's entertainment landscape. Martin and Lewis made millions of people laugh. Movies earned millions. Television comedy was redefined. And it all started with a booking mistake. This story shows that sometimes the biggest opportunities come disguised as problems. Dean Martin thought he was experiencing his biggest disappointment that night. Actually, this was his greatest opportunity. Jerry Lewis was entering a scary challenge as an amateur, but this challenge made him a superstar. And Eddie Torres solved a simple problem with a creative solution. This solution changed the entertainment industry. Those 5 minutes that happened at Havana Club on July 20, 1946, became the most important 5 minutes in comedy duo history. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis proved that magic can't be planned. It happens spontaneously, but with the right people, right time, right place, incredible things become possible. Two strangers became brothers that night. Two separate careers became one phenomenon, and a booking mistake transformed into an entertainment legend. That's why that night at Havana Club wasn't just a show business anecdote. It's the perfect example of destiny, friendship, and the power of spontaneity.